In this lesson, I propose to create helper scripts to manage our Monorepo. As you've noticed, we sometimes need to run certain commands in the web app folder, some commands in the backend folder, and have to switch back and forth. And we also have some commands that we usually want to run everywhere at once. For example, type checking. It would be convenient to run it on both the backend and front end with one command. These are the problems we'll tackle now. So, let's add scripts to the package. JSON file located at the root of our application. So, what scripts should we add? Let's determine the first goal. We need a helper command that allows us to run commands in either the backend or web app from the root folder. This will be the first step. This command must be very short. So, look, in the end, right now I want to make it so that when I write pnpmb in the root folder, which means backend, and then any command from the backend script, it would be triggered here. For example, I would like to write pnpm-bdev and start the development process. For this, I need to write the b command, which will forward everything that comes after the letter B to the backend package. For this, pnpm has a feature like this, pnpm. Then we say filter, which means it will go through all the JSON packages, including this one. And if it finds this package, it will call it. Technically, we can set the filter to affect more than one package, but we want to call it specifically in the backend. We've added the command b. Let's test its functionality. I wrote pnpmb, and then dev will be passed to the backend scripts. We wrote pnpm-bdev, and the backend process started. We wrote pnpmb, for example, types, and we will have type checking for the backend. Now let's add the same for the web app and call it w. The only thing is we need to adjust the filter. Let's check if our web app works. pnpm-wdev. Okay, pnpm-wdev works too. Now let's try to execute several commands in our different packages with one command. But for example, let's create a command D and let it work as follows. pnpm parallel dev. With this setup, our dev process will run simultaneously in both folders and merge into one process. Let's see what it looks like. pnpm dev. Here we see that scripts, while some messages or logs from the development of the web app script fall here with the web app subscription. Some logs from the backend come with the suffix of the script's own name. But honestly, specifically for development, it's not very convenient because these suffixes are added. And I sincerely recommend that you still call these two processes separately in two different terminal windows. That is, here and here. The only thing is that now you may never actually go into the backend and web app folders through your terminal, but always run any command from the root. Let's go back to the previous folder. And in practice, I still suggest calling DScript like this. You simply write pnpm-vdv in this terminal and pnpm-wdv in this terminal. And if there are any errors, it's much easier to analyze them specifically with such a log output. Okay, let's add the next command that will check types absolutely everywhere. We'll take it exactly the same way with types. And let's try to output in this format. So first, let's make sure it works. pnpm types, okay? And let's introduce some errors. All right, here we'll write title the old way. And here, we'll declare our variable again, invalid1, and call pnpm types. He scolded us, but I don't like the output format. That is, we read it, and nothing is clear here, and we need to figure it out. What alternatives do we have for simultaneous command execution? We can write it like this: pnpm btypes, and after its execution, call pnpm wtypes. Let's look at the output in this case. pnpm types. This way is much clearer. So, why isn't it crashing on the front end? Oh, it didn't crash on our front end, because it initially called this command. It contained errors, and if there are errors in this command, it doesn't reach this command. There are two problems here. First, we called pnpm types and saw only back-end problems, and didn't see the front-end problems. That's troublesome. That's one problem. And the second problem: first, we check back-end types, then front-end types. Also inconvenient. It would be better if they were checked in parallel and the process would be faster. Let's see what alternative options we have. We can install the concurrently package. Try it. pnpm install de concurrently. We are not allowed to do this, because when you have a monorepo, it assumes that you probably want to install some dependency into one of your packages. Usually this is not needed. No dependencies should be installed at the top level. But in this case, we want to use it here, because it's some common development dependency. I generally suggest installing all common development dependencies into our root file, such as Prettier, TypeScript itself. Let all of this be in the root. All the packages available in this JSON will also be accessible in your web app and backend. Okay, we've installed concurrently. And how can we call it? We can. It has various settings, but we'll use the most primitive method. We'll call it like this: concurrently pnpm btypes, pnpm wtypes. So these two commands will be executed simultaneously. Let's look at the output in this situation. The output is already better than in the first case, possibly less clear than if you run them sequentially, but at least we see errors immediately everywhere. Yes, we see that there are errors in TRPC on the backend, and we see that there are errors in the web app. Here, what output suits you more is up to you to decide. So you can configure this command however you like. I'm pretty satisfied with it as it is. And again, let me remind you, you won't often need to run this script manually. Soon we'll set it up to run automatically with TypeScript. If there are type errors, the commit won't be created. It will ask you to resolve these errors. Once fixed, make the commit again. If there are no more errors, the commit will be created, nevertheless. So it makes sense to add a command to format all our code. Regardless. Well, in all packages, let's first fix our project. We sorted out the types again. All right, let's choose the types. No errors. Okay. And let's create a protify command, which protifies everything. Here? Well, here you can actually run this in parallel using pnpm itself. Well, let's check. Here's CPC. We removed the comma here, and here we added double quotes, and saved it unformatted. And we call pnpm protify. Here, we don't care about how the logs look at all, because, well, tidied up and tidied up. Like, why should we look? Fixed all the quotes, added a comma, everything is good. Well, and since we talked about moving some common dependencies here, I suggest we do that. Let's see what we had on the back end. These 5 dev dependencies. Let's move it right here. Let them be here. Here they don't distract us. Let there be something really back-end dependent here. And these are purely dev tools, like Prettier, tools for deleting files and folders, tsnode, tsnode dev, tagclip. Let them be here. In principle, if you don't like this approach, no problem. You can leave all this on the backend and leave something separately in the app. We can also remove tag clip here if needed. If we talk about it later in subsequent lessons, then we'll address it. The main thing now is to check that everything works. So let's call PNPME. It's complaining about us. Oh, what's the complaint about? There's some kind of error. Somehow, that happened. All right, let's check again. PNPM. Okay. We check, you see. The types you see are working. Let's restart our backend, restart our front end. Let's go see what happened. Copying. Yes, everything works. Requests go to the backend. Responses return from the backend. So it turns out everything works. Good. We've written the command, transferred the dependencies. All good. Thank you. Let's move on.